Founders Floor, a co-working accelerator for startups.
So I'm Ron Burns, and this is my second time here on the Founders Floor, and my number one goal is to not earn the poopy hat. So, which has been hidden. I noticed where it was when I walked in the room. So I'm part of the Band of Angels. So we're a organic organization. We're now more than 175 people. We are the oldest of the angel organizations, one of the oldest in the country, the oldest in the West Coast. In fact, the Hans Severns Award from the Angel Capital Association is named after our founder. So I've been a member there for about 3 years. By the time we're done with 2018, I think I'll have 15 investments, all angel. And then before this fund, I spent several decades in the semiconductor and related industries. A couple of comments in terms of accelerators. We love working with accelerator and incubator companies and groups like Founders Floor. In fact, we have a special group now that we've actually created specifically so we can understand how we can interact more, both in terms of free advice and then also participating as potential investors. So look forward to the presentations.
Great. Yeah, Ron's talking about, this is our poopy hat right here. So anybody who doesn't have their phone to vibrate, okay, has to wear that, all right? So it gets spread through social media as well. So Curtis and I were just kind of reminiscing. Last time he was here last year, about, this time last year, because it was kind of funny because he's on a lot of different public boards, and at that point he was on the board of Staples, and it was funny because he came here about 3 hours before and had a long conference call in our conference room, and then he came out and he's like, okay, Staples just got sold to a private equity firm. And I'm like, whoa, man, a lot of history has happened right here in Founders Floor. But okay, so we're going to try this here. On my iPad, I have all the questions, and when you log in, you'll be able to see how they're ranked right now. And so I'm actually going to go around and hand the mic to the individual that has the highest ranking one so far. And we're just going to kind of go around like that. Carla, there we go, good. I'm going to hand you the mic. If you don't mind just introducing yourself, name, company name, and then ask your question if you can remember it, that is.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, thank you. My name is Carla Ricci. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Bandgenie. We're building a mobile marketplace network for the independent local live music industry. So my question was, the challenge that young funders like myself have is that we're constantly hunting for not just any angel, but the right angel. And it feels like this is just a fragmented ecosystem. I have no idea where to look or how to find the right match. What would be your advice from either of you as to how small startups can find targeted angels who are the best people for them to talk to?
So I think, so that's a great question. And angels come in all forms, sizes, and focuses. You have individual high net worth individuals that are participating usually because of a personal passion, and then you also have groups. So I can't speak as much to the high net worth individual because I'm part of a group, but other than to say that if you're in the music industry, you try to look at things, for example, like AngelList and others where people are starting to look at music. Now, if you were to approach a group like the band, there are multiple entry points. And we've organized ourselves in specific areas. So for example, we're 177 people primarily here in the Bay Area. So one filter, it's local, because that's the only way we can really help beyond the money. And then second, we have groups like Digital Disruption, which meets up in San Francisco, or the Software SIG. So I'm co-chair of the Software SIG. And so that might be an example of how we filter in to say, okay, it's something that may be more of a software type platform. And we have this 6 or 7 ways. So you can, by the way, our calendar is completely public. So you look and say, is there already a vertical market, special interest group that is closer to what I'm connected with? And then you can apply through the site, and or you can send a message saying, I'd like to see if I can attend one of these as a guest. And you get a sense of that, and you also get a chance to meet us. And that way you haven't gotten to one individual, but you've gotten to 10 to 15 or more individuals, at least in the particular market. So in fact, I'm invested in a company that's in the music space now, and the way they got to us is through that special interest group.
Next highest ranking question just happened to be one that I populated at the very start here. And the question is in regards to, a lot of companies here are on the fundraising process right now, starting that. And how long does it take to raise funding? How many weeks, how many months? What do you need to think about in regards to timing of that, and how much you need to plan out for?
So the interesting thing about angels is you'd say, well, it must be much faster. It'd be a couple of weeks with angels versus venture. Not exactly, because one of the things to give credit to firms like he's describing, one of the things they have is they have a fund and they have a committee and they make a decision. In the case of angels, you have a mass of people. So to get to first money, you might be able to do that in a couple of months. In fact, you might have been able to do it faster because the best deals that get funded through the band are ones that have sponsors. So you can find your first sponsor, maybe you can find them in a couple of weeks, maybe months, but maybe you find them in a couple of weeks. Then they're shepherding you through the process, and then you get to the big moment, you present to over 100. And by that time, you're going to get some funding. The question is how much funding and how much time. So I would give you the same advice. I would tell you that you start 6 months out, and then the difference might be in an angel group, you might get incremental funding along the way. The other thing to keep in mind is funding is a process and seed is a phase, it's not an event. And this is what we've come to understand. It is a life event for you and your company until you exit out of it. So funding is usually multiple fundings. And side advice, find groups, individuals, funds, however you go through this, that understand that you may need to do incremental closings and are willing to keep extending and letting you raise money, because this may take a while. There may not be just one closing.
Question here from Avi.
Can you just elaborate on that just a little bit more?
The multiple closings?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, I've led a couple, and in fact, I just got another request to authorize today. So most companies, they try to raise a certain amount of money, and along the way, one of two things happens. Either they find out that they need to raise more money just in their original plan. We're not talking about exhausting the funding and then going on. We're saying in the process, you learn more and you decide, I need to raise more money. So that's one way it's extended. Or second, everything takes longer today because of the processes involved, and it just takes longer to get there. So you say, I want to get 750K and I want to be done by September 30th. That is the goal. But then you're talking to an angel group and perhaps we only want to put in 200 or 300. Well, now we need to syndicate. So now we're trying to help you. It's in our interest, you get all 750. So now we're reaching out to 2 or 3 different angel groups. They all have their own individual process. So my advice is, if you can do this with one organization, one person, or one venture capital group and get it all done, go to it. But the reality is it typically takes a village, and the village takes some time. So plan on incremental closings and be thinking in your business plan, if I only get half of what I'm asking for, what will I do? Will I wait to get the other part?
Next question is from Avi, and the company is Weaver.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Avi from Weaver, and I run a B2B SaaS startup. My question is, what is a respectable metric for a company to be considered for angel investment in terms of beta customers or some other numbers that you would look for?
I think one way to look at this is, if you haven't been a CEO before, then you can't take one tick mark, which is you're part of the product. And so the judgment then is the product, and then the customer is buying it. If you've already been a CEO at least once before, then in terms of where that position is in the deck, it moves closer and closer to the front, because the reality, there are some serial entrepreneurs with a brand so strong, they're being funded early by very large VCs even before the product's there. And then for many of us, and I've been in 7 startups, we're not part of the product yet. So we have to get to the traction. And so we, as Angel, we look at the same thing. Now, we also are we're asking some different questions. We're asking questions about how much total capital will it take for you to get to break even. So the customer is just the first part of that. And then the second is, how quickly can you get to the point you won't need a lot of funding.
Next question is from Samir. Samir, okay, great. How about the question regarding worth the idea?
I guess this is for you guys if you started the company, or for entrepreneurs in general. So when did you know that you had an idea worth betting everything on, or given that you guys are investors, worth investing on?
So at what point, so I'll speak from an investor first, and then I was the VP of sales for all of these different companies. So I can't say I was the CEO, but I know when I made the decision to join. So the first one, the easier one, the investor, making that decision is when we think, based on a couple of factors, this is a capital efficient business. Again, I'm speaking more from an angel perspective. A capital efficient business that could go to a relatively early exit, which is it always is longer, but a relatively early exit. It's not the question of how big can it get, because that is a question that venture will ask you. We ask you, how can you get to an exit? And when we think you have the ability to do that, that has crossed over the threshold where this is very, very interesting to us. Then that final decision is on a number of factors, including the deal structure and other things. But we're in due diligence before you come into us, or before you get into our meetings, during the meetings, and then in a final decision to determine that. In terms of being an entrepreneur, I can't speak to the CEO, maybe my partner can, but the way that I made that decision is, do I think it'll further my career? Do I think this is something exciting and a lot of fun, because it's going to take an enormous part of my life during the time that I'm in it? And do I like the people I'm working with? And if those three things were yes, I did that 7 times and said yes. And not all of them worked.
Next question is actually one that we submitted prior. During the fundraising process, what is the best way for founders to be able to reach out to investors like yourself and others? How do you guys like to be reached out to? At events like this or email? How do you best engage with investors during this process?
I mean, it's just a high amount of data. We look at hundreds of companies here, so we funded, I think, 17 companies last year. So we're bringing to dinner every month but December. We take 1 month off. So every 11 months of the year, we have with 3 companies going to dinner. So all 3 of those are going to get some level of funding. Will they be happy with it? Not TBD. So that's the amount of flow that we have. And that's one of the reasons we like the accelerator incubator connection, because we get a chance to have a more meaningful discussion. And we're trying to broaden out the number of people in our group that can participate specifically for this reason. It's just a better connection. Does it mean you can't get funded by coming in over the transom? No, there are companies that go to deal review that have come in with a plan that's come over through our website, and you can apply to present. It can happen, but the odds get better when you meet us. The odds get better when you have a sponsor, and they just keep getting better and better. The more people that are evangelists for you within a group increases your chances dramatically.
Next question is from Sandeep with Ensemble Energy.
Hi, I'm Sandeep. I'm CEO of Ensemble Energy, a B2B startup focused on energy sector. My question is, at early stage, seed stage, what's your process of figuring out the valuation for the company you're in cap?
I think that's a great answer. And for angels, it may be higher than 10. I mean, we may have to start at 10 to 15x, because inevitably there's going to be dilution. What changes the formula a little bit? How long the journey might be. And that's where that break-even question comes in. If you're creating the next lift, first off, it may not even be an angel deal. It's probably a venture plus deal. But let's say you have something, SaaS is an example. We just had a question about SaaS. SaaS typically requires more marketing budget, so you may need a lot of money in that journey, so you've got to start with a high valuation. Then you look at a couple of other factors. You look at what you're willing to do. Right? You have to factor that in, what you're willing to live with. But you also have to temper this with, take a look at just general revenue. If you're going to have a revenue of, say, $1 million in year 1, think hard about something that is more than 10 times the revenue. Because then for all the people that have business background, they're questioning that. And then the final comment is, this is a journey. And whatever you do now, even if it was accepted, is going to have to fold into a model for the next step, because all of us want you to have enough capital to get to that exit, which means we want you to go whatever next step you need to go to. And that next step is going to be looking at what you did in the previous step. So if you set your valuation too high, not only is it a concern for us now, but later on, if you don't meet the goals, you put a huge anvil over your head, and you're going to have to then take a down round or adjusted round, and then you have very unhappy investors. So think about the long play, think about the steps of valuation and a progression, and how you can make the milestones, and then back that in to what you think is a practical valuation.
The next question was from one that Founders Floor had asked here, and the question is in regards to, you guys have seen thousands and thousands of successful entrepreneurs and founders throughout your careers. There's probably some data points you're starting to see across those individuals, some characteristics that maybe help them to be successful. Can you share maybe some of those characteristics you feel like you like to see in successful founders?
Tenacious leadership, self-confidence, but I think a key factor, particularly for some of we have very, very bright entrepreneurs, some of them just getting started, is an understanding to stay a student. So there's a delicate balance between being self-confident and assertive and not wavering on your vision, and then recognizing that we're all still learning. And so that dividing line is key. And then for me personally, looking for a strong moral center, because there's going to be so many challenges your way that you're going to need to have some kind of compass to guide you. And so that is something you can tell from just talking to people based on what their values are, what they believe.
Final question before we start the pitch event here, but a lot of companies are going to be raising funding soon here in our crowd, and obviously we have some companies that are pitching tonight. What are some of the things in a short amount of time they need to be able to express to any investors to be able to help them get that next step, that next sit-down meeting with you and the partners of the firm?
Talk about your business. From an angel perspective, let's talk, what kind of business is this? And how do you get to a profitable exit? Start from the end and work backwards, and just be thinking about that in a disruptive way. Something that's a defensible business with some core IP in some way that's capital efficient.